He's famous because the dark lines of the solar spectrum bear his name. And indeed, he discovered them. He actually wasn't the first to discover them. He discovered 574 of them. And clearly, his work on telescopy and spectroscopy revolutionized 19th century science. And just to give you the quick and dirty on Fraunhofer, again, Fraunhofer lines, also known as the absorption lines, they took Kirchhoff and Bunsen to establish the relationship between emission and absorption lines. He's a renowned craftsman, a Handwerker, optiker, an optician, but he never attends university. That's not surprising considering he's a working class lad. He's actually an orphan. He's not a very wealthy individual. He's self-taught. He reads textbooks and he works as an apprentice to a master craftsman in glassmaking. His two astonishing achievements: he invented and perfected a procedure for manufacturing the world's most coveted optical glass. I don't know if you know, a glass blank is a slab of glass. Usually in the late 18th and early 19th century, a glass slab would be about yo wide and yo high, weigh about probably 15, 20 pounds, depending upon how much lead oxide. His procedure was so amazing. He could produce homogeneous glass, meaning no bubbles, no stria due to differences in homogeneity, that were slabs that were over 400 pounds. To this point, yeah, no joke, 400-pound slab. To this point, the largest refractor, we're talking about refractors now, the largest diameter of refractor lens before Fraunhofer, 3 3/4 inches. His famous Dorpat telescope was nearly 10 inches in diameter. It could double and times triple the average diameter of a lens, thereby massively increasing the power of that telescope. He also invented and perfected a procedure for using the dark lines of the solar spectrum in order to determine with amazing precision and accuracy the refractive indices of very minute portions of the solar spectrum. Before Fraunhofer, you had no way to divide up the spectrum. If you wanted to know what the refractive index of a glass sample was, you took the average of the extreme red rays and the refractive index of the extreme violet rays, add them up, divide by 2, that's the refractive index for the glass. With Fraunhofer, what he does is he uses a thing called a theodolite, which is from Ordnance Surveying, this instrument right here. This is the prism whose refractive indices and dispersive indices you wish to know. This is actually a telescope, you look through it. Those are the dark lines, typically German, they actually like their scientists in their country, so they advertise them on a stamp from 1987, Deutsches Bundespost. And those are the dark lines of the solar spectrum. What you do is you line up the cross-hatchings of this theodolite, an Ordnance Surveying instrument, with those dark lines. You read off the veneer, this is divided 360 degrees, you get the angle, you plug and chug, and you get the refractive index for each of those dark lines of the solar spectrum. You then know that amount, and you know how much lead oxide or fluorine you need to put into the solution in order to make another class of achromatic doublets in order to correct for chromatic aberration. Physics 101. This is a model of the Dorpat telescope. It still exists. This is 1/12 the actual size. The lens, again, is about 10 inches in diameter. This is about 8 feet in the real thing. This is at the Deutsches Museum in Munich. That's one of his smaller works, but still operational today. He is so important. Germany's leading applied science and engineering research organization is called the Fraunhofer Gesellschaft. They work where the Max Planck Society works on theoretical science by and large. There are some distinctions and exceptions to that. For applied science and engineering, you go to the Fraunhofer Gesellschaft. So clearly, throughout history, he's rather important. But let's not forget, we're historians. So the question is, although he's considered one of Germany's heroes, what about the time? Was he considered, again, there is no word in English for scientist until William Whewell's History of the Inductive Sciences, 1837. He first mentioned in English language at the most important university of the world, not NYU, but Cambridge University. Was he a scientist or was he merely a Handwerker? Well, in order to answer this question, there's only one test, and that is, are you a member of the Academy of Sciences or not? And it turns out his election was highly controversial. 2 members protested most bitterly, 2 out of 20. Not bad odds, but you had to have a unanimous vote to get in. 2 people really went after Fraunhofer. Why? Because knowledge was secretive, and he earned money from what he did. A true member of the Academy doesn't earn money, because he, in this case, there weren't any she's in the Academy in the early 19th century. One cannot earn money for what one does, because if one does, one is no longer objective. That's the argument. to have an interest in something. In 17th century English literally means to have interest in a corporation in which you get interest, literally financial interest. So the argument is, if you're making money from this, you can't be objective, you're interested, right? Notice that this is a working class attack. All artisans, knowledge of artisans is by definition secretive. They are poor. The only way they make money is they sell their wares. They don't have rich mommies and daddies to bail their butts out, right? It's true. So you have in the election of 1820, rather famously, this notion of what I talked about before, the knowledge of the savant and the knowledge of the craftsman going at it head to head. And there's an amazing quote that I read to Cod, and I'll read to you now, which hits at the heart of our team. At the vote, von Bade, who actually was upper middle class, very well as savant, was interested in the application of science to the state. He's not opposed to that. He believes in technology. He just doesn't think these people should be members of the academy. We need you guys, you're just not going to eat at our table. His quote, which I found in the archive, is amazing. Here we go. Quote, when all of those who are suited for some technical art are accepted as ordinary members in the Academy of Sciences, the institution will soon degenerate into a motley corporation of technical artisans, factory owners, and industrialists of all sorts. That is to say, that we shall degenerate into a polytechnic association. I saw that and go, oh, I can't wait till that goes into the German translation, which didn't. So that's basically the critique, and it's not just a German thing. The notion, this is John Herschel, you probably know him as a historian of physics, physicist and mathematician. His father was the famous astronomer, right? And he was equally good in astronomy. He was considered one of the leading experimental natural philosophers in Britain in the 19th century. And he wrote a very influential book that no one reads anymore, what was required reading if you wanted to be an experimental natural philosopher, called Preliminary Discourse on the Study of Natural Philosophy of 1830. And in this book, he literally contrasts craft knowledge with the knowledge of the savant. Just to quote a bit from his work. I'm getting old, I need glasses, and of course being an idiot, I didn't zoom in, I didn't increase the dimensions of this. So to give you an example, if scientific knowledge requires not perhaps a greater certainty, but at least a confirmed authority and a probable duration by universal assent. Those who admire and love knowledge for its own sake, again, no utilitarianism here, ought to wish to see its elements made accessible to all, were it only that they were may be the more thoroughly examined into and more effectively developed in their consequences. But to this end, it is necessary that it should be divested as far as possible of all artificial difficulties, stripped of all such technicalities as to tend to place it in the light of a craft and of a mystery, inaccessible without a kind of apprentice. He's saying scientific knowledge is open knowledge. It's not about secrets. You can't have secrets. If you want secrets, be a member of a guild. We scientists are open. It's about the res publica literarum. Science, technology, and medicine is about the benefit of all, for all. If that's going to happen, you've got to share your knowledge.